So what happens when someone doesn't have it right? They call themselves an apostle, everyone around them calls them an apostle, and yet certain things come out. Well, this has been happening in the church. And these apostles then, because they have so much power, it's not just power as in their position, they have so much money. The money. So people have saddled up to them. They have given many other leaders platforms. They have invited them into their network. And now, because people don't want to lose position or friendship or the association, when error begins to happen, everyone goes silent. So I have a really big problem, because the Word of God specifically says that when you are a teacher, a pastor, an apostle, or a prophet, you will be judged more harshly. And how many times can you sin and be restored? Is there a number? Is every individual situation different? Are you able to be found out that you were a pedophile and harmed underage kids 30 years ago, but now that it's so far away, it's under the blood? You know, it was so long ago that you would actually harm little kids, in which Jesus has spoken very plainly about being a despicable sin. Might as well tie one of those blocks around your neck and drown yourself. That would be better than what's planned. And how do we know who's really repentant? When they're sorry, they cry, they have tears, and then they do it again. Can everyone be restored? Yes, maybe. And of course, your relationship to God be restored. That's ultimately what it's about. It's about heaven. But when the Word of God has such a high standard for those that function in the ministry and call themselves the church, call themselves prophets, leaders, apostles, and then they fall, it all kind of comes pouring out. And then, of course, there's restoration and all of that. So a pastor functions, and a leader functions in a prophetic gifting and is leading a huge ministry. And then it's found out that for 3 years, he's absolutely living a double life. This has become the norm and the embarrassment of the church. And then we find out, like here in our own British Columbia, there have been people that have committed heinous crimes and actually sexually assaulted others. And that as well gets covered up. So in the United States, we have people like Mike Bickle and now Rick Joyner. Mike Bickle, ultimately, you know, a lot of allegations from numerous, multiple victims. The one that I spoke to, one of them she was 14 when he began to groom her and sexually assault her. There was many. Mike Bickle, for all intents and purposes, I'm sorry, is an absolute predator. Why would we restore this man? Because he has a great teaching gift? I think if you have a great teaching gift and you are a prophet or a leader, you ought to be walking in such fear of God that you will not be committing sexual sin. And you will walk in such fear of the Lord that you will abstain from any lusts of the flesh, and you will kill and crucify your flesh daily, as the Word tells you to do, and that there will not even be a hint amongst you of this kind of nonsense going on. And that is not the case. And these big leaders And I can't help but wonder if it's not all the money tied in. Every time a leader gets taken down, an empire of wealth gets taken down. The people that once donated to that ministry, that had this charismatic leader, celebrity culture, that's like you lose all the funds. Nobody wants to do that because they're not actually necessarily donating, for the Lord. They're donating for this charismatic leader to put forward his ministry. And if we're supporting and donating to all of these places, we have to ask ourselves why. Our tithe would be much better used finding someone real close to home that has real needs. Go down to your local shelter, to the food bank, and ask what families are coming in to get their food all the time because it's a mom and a dad and kids and they're just barely functioning. Pay their rent. Give them a leg up. Do something that might put them on a different track that could just get them ahead just that little bit. And you know how I know this is value? Because I've done this exactly for people. One lady, I remember, it was very life-changing for her. It was 2 months of rent. And things got on track for her. So if we're going to think about what God intended for the tithe, what did he intend? Did he intend to make Kenneth Copeland wealthy? Did he intend to make Joni Lamb wealthy? No. How has this happened? And I am not against someone making a very good wage because they're excellent at what they do. They put their whole heart into it and they get a good wage, and they, because they lead a great ministry, they are taken care of to a reasonable degree. Once it gets into millions and millions of dollars, you're fleecing the flock, and it's ridiculous. You don't get to have 5 homes by taking money from people who donate. I mean, something is definitely wrong with all of this.